everyone. Welcome to another Random Talk Sunday. Apologize I had to delay this video. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy over the weekend, but I should be caught up by the end of today as of Wednesday. So without further ado, let me address what I wanted to briefly talk about for this particular Random Talk Sunday, and that is daylight savings time. If you're within the United States, you probably already have switched your clocks around to an hour ahead. And it's a very strange point in time. And there's been a variety at least of reasons as to why it sort of came about. And I sort of wanted to kind of briefly address on to what exactly brought about this whole kind of phenomenon. But it's believed that daylight savings time did start within the ancient world, in particular the Romans. Because the Romans were sort of famous for being the ones to really start the kind of calendar that we sort of come and know of today. It wasn't though until 1916 in Germany, and at least became the first country to adopt this daylight savings time. But the first city to ever really institute it was in 1908 in Ontario, Canada. And the idea behind it for Germany specifically was to minimize artificial lighting during World War I. So in other words, they were sort of saving their energy and resources for the sort of the war effort. And that's pretty interesting, and is one that I think I haven't really heard of before. Oftentimes I've heard of reasons like for agricultural purposes and whatnot. So it was nice to see that there was some other reasonings than what I previously thought. Also, the interesting thing too is that even Ben Franklin sort of suggested daylight savings time as well during the time he was alive. But the interesting thing is that it did come into the U.S. sort of a similar reason as to why it came to Germany, which was basically to sort of help the war effort. And this was sort of approved by Woodrow Wilson, who was the president during the time. And the interesting thing was it really wasn't instituted within the United States until 1942. So it really was kind of this thing that was kind of in experimentation mode for a good chunk of time, and it didn't seem like it didn't really gain traction again until sort of the 1900s, really, despite the fact that the ancient world sort of utilized this sort of method of changing time. And what's also interesting too is that throughout the world, every country has sort of their own start and end time kind of with this daylight savings. For example, I think in Europe it's not until a little bit later until they start the whole switcherooing with the clock. And it is really interesting as to how this sort of became a trend. As far as its relevancy, I'm not exactly sure if there is sort of really relevant reasons as to why we really use it now. At least from my research, it was more about the past and sort of leading up to when daylight savings time was sort of developed. But it is interesting to see how it was sort of designed to be kind of a mechanism to sort of conserve energy and do so kind of conserve people's sort of way of living. And I think that was sort of the whole kind of maybe even more broader universal idea of daylight savings time. As to whether or not it's even relevant today, that's also something that people have been really questioning. Um, I could sort of understand though too why, again, because we obviously change seasons too. You know, spring is, I believe, supposedly is, from what I'm mistaken, coming, or at least is going to be here relatively soon. But uh, the the thing is that it's just sort of a way in which we kind of um, really ultimately kind of alter our sort of state of what is now. And uh, again, it would be interesting to see if eventually we fall away from even utilizing this change in time, but I think it's more so to do with the fact that we obviously still have these seasons that alter, and sometimes time obviously makes sense to do something different with it every now and again and sort of have it be a cycle that's repeated. But um, I think it still remains to be kind of seen what exactly um, what will happen years and years from now. But it's kind of interesting to learn about the history behind it, and you know, it's very bizarre, the feeling every time the time changes sort of around. But it is kind of one of those things where, you know, you sort of learn to adapt to it. And I think this sort of pattern was sort of designed for to make humans adapt to certain things. And I think ultimately, for the most part, it seems to work for now. So might as well use it if it's available. But I think that's really all I can say about this topic. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.